Justin Heap is here. He's the recorder of Maricopa County. I want to thank him for sharing some wisdom with me on what we can do to partner together.
And welcome back to Square Off. Hours after being praised by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap claimed he uncovered more than 130 non-citizens on the voter rolls. Do we know Heap was right? Could he have been wrong? Sasha Hupka, elections reporter for the VoteBeat, has done a deep dive on Heap's numbers and the controversial federal database he relied on. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having me.
I want to get to the citizenship data in just a minute. First, the public saw the latest installment this past week of the bitter year-long fight between Heap and the Maricopa County Board. The board ordered Heap to appear, answer their election-related questions. If he didn't do that, the board could have, under state law, remove him, which caused a whole political fight, which we won't get into right now. Heap did show up. What's your takeaway from what you saw at that meeting?
My honest takeaway is just how much the communication between these two entities has completely devolved. I mean, they were talking in this meeting about tweets. They were talking about unanswered letters. And all of it seemingly, apparently their attorneys behind the scenes are not communicating well. They can't even agree on whose turn it is to give a counteroffer in writing. And all of this to me indicates that they're not having really any communication behind the scenes. And that's a problem because these election officials all have to work together in order to pull off 2026 in the largest county and a key swing region in Arizona. So I think it really raises a lot of questions around how these coming elections are going to go.
And the fight has been over what's called the Shared Services Agreement, which basically says who does what when it comes to running our elections. And Justin Heap is in charge of the early vote, but he seems to want more?
So Heap is statutorily in charge of mail-in early voting. There's also in-person early voting, which is when you go to a polling site yourself physically before Election Day and you're able to cast a ballot. Historically, within the last few years at least, the board has typically done this because they control in-person voting on Election Day. And so if you're going to have polling places open early and you're going to have poll workers there to assist voters, and then you're also going to have to do all of that on Election Day, it has kind of made sense seemingly for the board to be the one to sort of pull this off. Heap wants that. And so the board, sort of in their latest settlement offer that they publicly gave in this meeting, they essentially said they intend this election cycle to give him that in-person early voting that he wanted. But it's unclear whether that resolves this ongoing legal battle that they're stuck in this ongoing dispute.
What's interesting about that is, you know, Heap was helped into office by the election denier caucus on the Republican side, far-right Republicans. There are concerns, as I hear from the board members, about the locations he would choose for those early voting sites. Concerns that he might believe they have skewed Democratic in the past. He's a Republican and might want them to skew Republican. Is that even possible legally for that to happen, do you know?
Well, in the resolution that the board passed, which is essentially their statement of how they are going to move forward in 2026 in terms of this dispute without an SSA, they laid out that he'll have the in-person early voting, but they also laid out in there that they expect the sites to comply with all state and federal laws, to be equally geographically distributed, and to not be distributed in such a manner as to advantage Democrats or Republicans in any way, shape, or form. I think the main takeaway I take from this actually is more so that these two sides also seem to increasingly be throwing these claims at each other of attempted disenfranchisement or attempted wrongdoing. And it's unclear if those claims are even true. Right. And I think that that's also a problem because that's feeding into a misinformation cycle ahead of this very important election where clearly these people aren't agreeing. And if you have a situation where even something very minor goes wrong on Election Day, what you've seen in the past is that the recorder's office and the board have typically presented a unified front. And it's pretty clear that this time around, that's not going to happen. So if something very minor goes wrong, it can sort of spiral out of control because they're immediately going to be pointing fingers at each other. And I think all of this is very, it implies all of that.
Very good point. Very good point. Let's move to the citizenship data. Big picture, what have past studies found about voting by non-citizens in our elections?
It's extremely rare. It's minuscule. It's not that it's impossible or that it can't happen, but there's been just so few cases. In my time in Arizona, I think there's only been one that I'm aware of, one, count them one, case where a non-citizen was found to have been registered. And in that instance, the non-citizen was, of course, I think ultimately removed. And the non-citizen had never voted. They had signed up accidentally. It is so rare, and there's been so many studies that have proven this.
What did Justin Heap find using the SAVE database, federal database?
So his office says that they found 137 non-citizens on Maricopa County's rolls.
Registered to vote.
Registered to vote. Of those, it says that 60 of them had voted in previous elections. This was based on running a fairly small sample, actually, of Maricopa County's voters through this database, which is sort of a new and enhanced version that now allows for mass verification. Here's the problem. In other states, that new and enhanced version of that database has returned a lot of false positives. And certainly those numbers, given what we know about non-citizen voting, right, make my eyebrows and experts' eyebrows go up. And so it's unclear, did that office, did they do anything to second check, to verify that these people who were flagged by this system are in fact non-citizens? Did they do anything to verify their citizenship status besides putting them through a system that has proven unreliable?
Do we know, has he done that?
We don't know. He has not answered my questions on that. The statement that he put out on this, which was very sudden on a Friday night before a holiday weekend, was very bare bones. It did not mention whether he had done that. It did not mention whether he had sent notices to these voters as required under state law. He has to send notices and give them about a month to respond with proof of their citizenship if they're able to provide that. It did not say anything about whether he'd done that, and he hasn't answered my questions about it.
And he also said he would turn the data over to the Attorney General's office and the Maricopa County Attorney's office. We are taping on Friday morning. As of this moment, has he done that?
No, I heard from both of those agencies yesterday afternoon that he had not done that. I reached out to his office asking them for comment on that, and again, I did not receive a response. So it's possible as of this very moment that they did it, sort of between late yesterday afternoon and this morning. But as far as I know, that hasn't happened, and neither of those agencies have, updated me to tell me that he had.
But it sure made a lot of noise on social media, which may be the most important thing. Don't know. Hopefully you can get more, come back to us and report. Sasha Hupka, thanks so much for the work you do.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for this week. Thanks very much to all of our guests. Thank you so much for joining us. See you back here next weekend for another round of Sunday Square Off.